utilized for that purpose.
And very true, Kingsley, as we take a look at this discussion this morning, we shall be looking at the basic principle of the allocation formula, which includes equality of states and 40%, population 30%, landmass at 10%, internal revenue effort also at 10%, and social development effort at 10%. The expectation is that revenue resources ought to be equitably distributed in any given economy for development. Could it be said that the old allocation formula has actually slowed down the nation's development? And in what specific way is the new formula expected to fast-track the nation's development? These are some of the issues that Good Morning Nigeria will x-ray as we discuss the review of revenue allocation formula in Nigeria. I'm Yenre John, and I welcome you to another package of the program.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague here to also welcome you to the program. We're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As you very well know, the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission has for some years now been working on a revised revenue allocation formula. Now, there is also the issue of salaries and wages in terms of harmonization for public officers in various cadres, because we know that there are probably about a dozen salary structures in the public sector, and the disparities, many have said, create distortions because everyone at the end of the day goes to the same market. Sure. Market for food, market for health, market for education, and a lot more. So we shall be taking a look at the revenue allocation formula, the revision of it, where we are at the moment. Plus, there was some contentious matter that came up some weeks ago, namely that the commission, that's the Revenue Allocation and Allocation Commission, was proposing an increment in the emoluments and rewards for political office holders. Of course, that generated quite some furore. We'll of course be hearing from those who know and what the situation is. Plus, as we have said, an alignment or realignment of salaries and wages across the public sector. Once again, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on the network service of the NTA. In the course of the program, we have our regular complimentary segments: business, newspaper review, and others. Here is Lydia Ochi, who has the highlights of the morning news. Morning, Lydia.
Good morning, Kingsley and Yere. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the news. New banknotes of the nation's currency, the Naira, has been formally unveiled. President Muhammadu Buhari performed the official launch of the redesigned 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes denominations with immense pride and satisfaction. He said the need to take control of the nation's currency in circulation as well as address the hoarding of Naira banknotes outside the banking system is urgent.
With security features that make it difficult to counterfeit, these new banknotes will help the central bank design and implement better monetary policy objectives. They will also enrich our collective memory of Nigeria's heritage.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to embark on an official trip to Niamey, the Republic of Niger, to attend the African Union Summit on Industrialization and Economic Diversification. In a statement, the president is also expected to attend the extraordinary session on African Continental Free Trade Area. The president, who is expected to depart Abuja today, will also attend the launch of French version of the book entitled Muhammadu Buhari, The Challenges of Leadership in Nigeria, and also inaugurate the Muhammadu Buhari Boulevard, named after him by the government of the Republic of Niger. The Federal Executive Council has approved the validation, adoption, and extension of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy Document 2022 to 2026. This is aimed at sustaining and enhancing the renewed onslaught against corruption and other acts of economic sabotage in the country. Attorney General and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting.
Today, we are recording successes in terms of convictions to the extent that a single agency of government, if you take, for example, the EFCC, within a year, I'm talking of 2022, we have recorded over 3,000 convictions, from the point of 109 convictions in over 10 years by previous administration. And then if you are looking at it from other perspectives, for example, perspectives relating to the recovery of the looted assets, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari has succeeded in recovering around $1 billion from its inception to date.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has again called on countries that are sponsoring the defunding of gas projects in Africa to abandon the idea, but rather support Africa in the quest towards meeting its energy needs for growth and development. Anything contrary to this, he observes, would further dip the people into poverty.
Clearly, limiting the development of domestic gas projects, which is a critical energy transition pathway for Africa, violates the enshrined principles of equity and justice and poses dire challenges for African nations.
President Muhammadu Buhari has written to the Senate seeking the confirmation of 15 nominees as chairman and members of the Niger Delta Development Commission. The request has Loretta Onoche as chairman with 14 others as members. The president's letter also sought the consideration of the commission's 2021, 2022, and 2023 budgets.
Loretta Ifeanyi Onoche, chairman, Delta State.
The Nigerian Communications Commission's Computer Security Incident Response Team has advised users to adopt two-factor authentication to protect their Telegram accounts and not to download unknown advanced IP scanner software. This is as Ukrainian cyber experts discover an attack which uses Vida malware to steal Telegram session data, and in the absence of configured two-factor authentication and the passcode, allows unauthorized users to the user's Telegram account and corporate account or network. The malware targets platforms across iOS, Android, Linux, Mac, and Windows operating systems. And that's the news. It's now back to Kingsley Anyere for the rest of Good Morning Nigeria. After this break, do stay with us.
On this auspicious location of the APC presidential campaign rally and governorship campaign flag-off in Ebonyi State, the state governor, His Excellency Engineer Chief David Nwesomahi, is pleased to welcome the presidential candidates of All Progressive Congress APC, His Excellency Senator Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, Vice Presidential candidates, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, National Chairman of APC, His Excellency Senator Abdullahi Adamu, and National Working Committee members, the Director General of Tinubu Shettima Campaign Council and Governor of Plateau State, His Excellency Right Honorable Simon Bakola Long, the Progressive Governors, National Assembly members, Honorable Ministers, members of the National Organizing Committee, and other national leaders of our great party to the State APC Grand Rally. Date Thursday, 24th November 2022. Venue Pangalore Township Stadium, Abakaliki. Time 10 a.m. As you honor us with your esteemed presence, please accept the assurances of the warm welcome and hospitality of the government and people of Ebonyi State. Signed, Governor of Ebonyi State.
The Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, welcomes stakeholders and beneficiaries of landmark broadband implementation projects for micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as tertiary and higher institutions as follows. Date, Thursday, 24th November 2022. Venue, Lagos Ocean Hall, Transcorp Hilton, Abuja. Time, 11 a.m. The session will witness the presentation of the projects to several universities and other institutions. These projects are being implemented by the Nigerian Communications Commission in line with the Digital Economy Policy and Strategy 2020 to 2030. The event will also witness the launch of a book titled Skills Rather Than Just Degrees, authored by Pantami, with a foreword written by Brad Smith, President, Microsoft Corporation. Dr. William Allo, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, announcer.
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) hereby informs the general public that the preliminary register of voters will be displayed for public scrutiny in all registration areas, wards, nationwide from Saturday 12th to Friday 18th November 2022. The preliminary register of voters will also be displayed on the Commission's official website. INEC will address the claims, objections, and complaints arising from the public scrutiny of the register at registration areas, wards from Saturday 12th to Friday 18th November 2022 and at INEC local government offices from Saturday 19th to Friday 25th November 2022. All registered voters are advised to cross-check their details in the register. Any voter whose name and personal particulars are incorrect can file a claim. Furthermore, the public can file objections against any name wrongfully included in the register. This message is from the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
Now time for business news with Alika Okpanachi Arwa as our guide.
This was contained in a communique issued at the end of the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee meeting for November 2022. The federal government received 293.955 billion naira. The state governments received 239.512 billion naira, and the local government councils received 177.086 billion naira. The total sum of 26.228 billion naira was shared to relevant states as 13% derivation revenue. The 736.782 billion naira total distributable revenue comprised distributable statutory revenue of 417.72 billion naira, distributable value-added tax revenue of 213.283 billion naira, exchange gain revenue of 5.775 billion naira, and 100 billion augmentation from non-oil revenue. In October 2022, the total deduction for cost of collection was 33.55 billion naira, and total deductions for transfers, savings, and refunds was 186.749 billion naira. The balance in the excess crude account was $472,513.64. Now let's take a look at Thursday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Okpanachi Arwa.
Thank you very much, Alika, for the business package. Up next for us is newspaper review.
right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning, which has the boldest headline right here that says electricity crisis. Governors reject sale of 10 power plants, and the riders, we have NGF insist on legal solution to $418 million Paris Club refund fee row. Above that story, we have ex-Attorney General of the Federation, Idris returned $900,000 cash, and witness tells court. And above the masthead, Wike overrated. Atiku camp hits back at governor, and details on page 5 of the Nation. Just beside that story, we have bandits demand new Naira notes to free abducted victims, and details on page 6 of the Nation. We also have right here, Tinubu inaugurates Ebonyi Government House Road. Ronaldo, Neymar begin World Cup quest. All right, so just away from that, now we have right here the picture of the Central Bank of the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the president, and of course, you know what that's about, the new Naira notes. So we have pictures of what it looks like right here on the front page of the Nation newspaper, and just beside that, we have it is difficult to fake new Naira notes, and that is credited to Buhari. So these are the stories on the front page of the Nation this morning.
Let's also take a look at the window page of the Punch newspaper, and we go from the earpiece to below the nameplate. PDP differs as APC dismisses electronic result transmission. That's on page 13. Paris Club reform, that's the kicker. Governors stop deductions, consultants held for French court. Two riders, governors will end up embarrassing Nigeria after overseas court ruling. That's according to consultants. And then states won't allow illegal payments to consultants despite DMO promissory note. That's attributed to the NGF. New Naira, CBN, EFCC to track large withdrawals. APC dismisses ex-SGF Lawa's threat to back Atiku. Gunmen kidnap Benue doctor, release son. Excess crude account declines by 89%. Let's take also very quickly the front page, a few stories from the front page of the New Telegraph newspaper. New Telegraph newspaper. It says Naira appreciates to 780 Naira, excuse me, to the dollar at parallel market over new notes. World Bank unveils agenda for Nigeria and others in $300 billion blue economy. I'm talking about the New Telegraph newspaper. We'll take the punch off the screen, and then we'll get back to the New Telegraph. Those are the headlines I'm reading now. New Telegraph, also below the nameplate there, you have the following headlines. There's a couple of them we are taking. It says, Senate probes concessioning of 700 megawatt Zungeru power plant. And the little story says, with a kicker, Malami is the Attorney General of the Federation. Federal government has recovered $1 billion looted funds since 2015. Over 3,000 persons convicted for graft. FEC, that's Federal Executive Council, approves new anti-corruption strategy document and says government disappointed at budget padding revelations in National Assembly. And then also there on the front page, 2023, INEC agonizes over insecurity and campaign financing. That's that. And then, of course, you have a number of riders accompanying that. Study, 1 glass of wine a week during pregnancy may alter baby's brain. 1 glass of wine a week during pregnancy may alter baby's brain. In the course of pregnancy, the rule is no alcohol, not even a glass of wine. Not even a glass of wine once in a month. He's talking about once a week, altering the baby's brain. 9 months, no alcohol. While you are lactating, no alcohol. That's the rule.
Okay. Yes, it's easy for the men to actually spell out the rules when the women are at the receiving end. So let's just quickly take a look at...
No, it's not... there are men who also abstain, by the way. There are men who don't take alcohol. And it is particularly crucial for a pregnant mom. So
She has to protect
what
her
she's
baby.
ingesting is not just for herself,
But for her baby.
but also for her baby.
Very true.
How does the baby process alcohol? That's a toddler. I mean, it's not even a toddler. It's not yet, baby is not yet formed. So if a person stays away from alcohol for a year, what harm does it do to the individual?
No, I agree totally with you. Not like I'm arguing, but I just like the way.
You are bringing the feminists. You are saying when the rules apply to women, it's
I
a
just
lot
like
easier.
how firm you are about it. You know,
We have to be fair. We have to be fair. So that, because you have seen, I mean, I'm sure it's a sorry sight. I mean, when you see some pregnant women taking alcohol.
Some smoking. It's really terrible.
But smoking, alcohol, those things, you avoid them altogether.
Sure.
So let's take another headline.
Yes,
and then we'll go back
just
to
the Daily
review.
Trust quickly. Now, you talked about her pardon in the Telegraph newspaper. The Daily Trust has it as a screaming headline. 2023 budget. That's the kicker. Finance Ministry on the spot, over 424 billion naira pardon. And the riders, we have lawmakers decry insertions. It's a ploy to divert taxpayers' fund. Ministry denies allegations, and it is being investigated. And that is coming from Malami. Away from that, we have Ohaneze, Northern Elders Forum seek renegotiation of Nigeria's unity, and details can be found on page 6 of the Daily Trust. Next to that, we have fuel scarcity spreads in Lagos as ex-depot price hits 205 naira. EFCC, ICPC, others to monitor campaign spending, and that is credited to the INEC chair. Just away from that, there's this headline, though not bold, but I think it's important to mention it. Still in captivity, 11 schoolgirls of Federal Government College, Birini, Yari, 525 days and counting. And then one student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 498 days still in captivity and counting. Let's just look away from that now. We have just below the front page of the Daily Trust this morning as Buhari unveils new Naira notes, 165 billion Naira mopped up. And the riders, CBN decries bank's low response, redesigned notes not targeted at anyone. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And we have a newspaper reviewer right here with us. Chukudi is right here with us this morning. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me. You started on a rather hilarious yet very serious note. One glass of wine may alter baby's brain. Okay, that's within what period you specify there?
Within the period of
not during the entire pregnancy period.
One glass of wine a week.
A week
can alter the brain of the baby.
I think the natural thing to do is to listen to those who know. If they have said it, Kingsley said something. Even a man has to be aware of his alcohol intake. I'm not one of those who can drink and still stay sober. I could actually go on the highway on 2 bottles of beer. So you have to be careful. But we don't know that another source would not tomorrow come to tell us, no, it's not exactly something as drastic as that. You have to get up to 3 bottles. They don't keep steady, on these projections. That's the little problem there. And let me quickly go to the governors who are stopping deductions. And their consultants are heading for the French court. And somebody's warning that this might actually be a source of embarrassment to us later. Now, the governors are said to be of the opinion that resources belonging to states should not be unjustly or illegally paid to a few in the guise of consultancies. The question you ask is, where are they getting feelers from that this may be, in the offing? Is it that there has been a kind of suspicion concerning the process of allocation and all that, So you begin to wonder, why this? Have we not been allocating according to a schedule that is constitutionally recognized, or rather the revenue mobilization people have specified? So you begin to wonder why things like this will crop up way into when we should have become expert in making a very glib and seamless process happen. That is my own take on it, you know. Then we quickly go to the Attorney General, that's Abubakar Malami, saying that the federal government has recovered $1 billion of looted funds since 2015. I think this is something that should make us happy. I think so. It is something that should make us happy. But then, it's just like, you know, there's this character we read about. I can't recall his name immediately. Oliver Twist. You tell us that you're doing something that is positive on our in terms of the life we live as Nigerians. We're going to tell you that if you succeeded in getting 5, we see the possibility of you getting 10. So please double the effort so you can get more. You know, a leak in the system is disaster for the populace in the long term. So I think it is something that we should applaud. Okay. Then the new Naira notes, the CBN and EFCC are saying that they are tracking large withdrawals because somebody is going to try to play hanky-panky somewhere. The essence of introducing the notes anyway is to make sure that the reported hoarding of notes, you know, is somebody puts paid to that process. Somebody stops it. So whatever they do, we wish them luck. We are not in the system. We can only advise from the sides that they do a very thorough job. Then, of course, bandits demanding new Naira notes to free victims. What is the meaning of that? I don't think we can rationalize in the open with bandits. But it doesn't quite seem to me like something anyone should expect, you know, from people, whether they are people who are acting in the negative or in the positive. The Naira notes have just been unveiled. They are not really accessible as such to the public in that sense. So why is this cropping up? But then bandits are bandits. If you rationalize their life, you miss the point about what they are doing, you know. So that's it there. Then we quickly have to look at something we mentioned earlier again, the pardon allegation. It's an allegation because as far as I'm concerned, the papers reporting it are reporting it not out of attribution they could make to the Ministry of Finance, which, which accusing fingers are being, you know, pointed at. This is something coming from investigation and all that. But the ministry says nothing of the sort has happened. So you don't know who to believe. Is your word or mine? The NTA is concerned include power, NUC, the Ministry of Defense is mentioned as well, humanitarian affairs. They are saying those monies you saw in excess of what we say we are not from us. So you begin to wonder, what is happening? Can't we do certain things in such a tidy way, tidy manner, that things are not insinuated in the process of getting those very important things done?
All right, thank you, Chukwudi Okolupaja. Of course, you have touched on very important issues in the papers this morning. But I'd just quickly like to ask you, looking at the pictures of the new Naira notes, the redesigned Naira notes, what's your take on the new look?
I've not quite looked at them critically, but I gather that beauty is not the focus this time around. If you look at the American dollar, for instance, the greenback, nobody is talking about beauty. The most important thing to take away, which the president himself has dropped, is the texture, the make, the security of the new currency notes has been further assured. Counterfeiting them has become a lot more difficult, or is going to be a lot more difficult. I think that is what should come as a very, very happy news to us, rather than
that's really the
beauty of it.
So I think I would like to hear Kingsley's view about the new look of the Naira.
Well, I'm sure you have all encountered some of the jibes on the social media about the redesigned Naira notes. That some persons are asking the question whether change of color amounts to redesign. Redesign, of course, there could be security features. I have not touched any of the new Naira notes, but on the face of it, apart from the color, nothing appears to have changed. The basic visible features remain the same, and this might cause some confusion initially, I imagine, going forward. I also think that perhaps this didn't take a long time for the CBN to decide upon and then to also proceed. Because when you have changes to banknotes, the Bank of England recently changed their banknotes, of course, from paper to polymer, and you see some of the features of change from time to time. Every 20 pounds, 50 pounds, and 10 pounds, those features change. Now that, of course, you have a new king in England, the picture will obviously change going forward. So why was that difficult for us to do on this particular occasion? Again, I imagine that probably there were concerns as to what choices you make on the photographs that you may wish to have, or the representations you may wish to have on the notes. Usually these things are done to honor national heroes. Recall what happened in the 1970s when we had the highest banknote at the time. It was a 20 Naira note. That 20 Naira note was, of course, bore the feature of late General Murtala Muhammad. Yes. And for many years we had that, and then the next Naira note that came out was 50. And then from 50 to 100 Naira, 100 to 200, 500, and now 1,000. Those kind of changes. But they say they will do this every 5 or 8 years. Fair enough. I think that part of what has happened, whether it's a color change or whether they use blue to dye 1,000 notes, yes, 1,000 Naira notes, what it has done is that there are reports of persons who had previously hoarded or kept these monies at home, and taking them now into the banking system. Yeah. Sometimes you have to pinch yourself as to what you are saying on the social media. Let's say there are a collection of videos I saw referring to what they call the cash grave. Cash grave. This was done.
Stages of decay.
Money,
you couldn't believe it.
This is what you find with the consequences of the Naira change, as it were, that we are seeing now. Those, of course, who had kept these monies, if you earn that money legitimately, you will go and bury it.
Very true.
Under the ground. So the money is decayed. Of course, you have made losses. You are probably happy, and it will cost you money to replace the floor where you put all of that. So I think those are some of the things to worry about. But it just tells you why Nigeria is so rich a country and people are so poor. Yeah. Because you need money as a driver of production, money as a driver of employment. If you keep, I said it yesterday on Good Morning Nigeria. Look, take 1 million Naira, put it under this, come back in 100 years' time, it will remain 1 million Naira. But
that's not productive.
1 million Naira as a chosen action, as we say in law.
Thank you.
And you will see the multiplier effect.
That's it.
I also refer to the biblical parable of talents. People, I don't know, but maybe we'll have a conversation around one of these days. We used to have psychiatrists and psychologists, on our program. A number of them, of course, Professor Igesa at the University of
Very
Ibadan.
Important topic.
Dr. Abdul Malik is there also at Ibadan. Associate Professor Oluwaseun also at the National Hospital here at the University of Abuja. To discuss what is the psychology behind
the notes.
Is it that every well-dressed man or woman is indeed sane?
It's not.
Various degrees of madness.
Big time. I just want to very quickly, before we sign off on this segment, I know that there are other issues you want to raise. Go to, you can see, I'm sure that we can have it pinned up on the screen. Pages 16 and 17 of the Punch newspaper. It's a special feature, that's to say a special report by the Punch. And it says, security, that's the headline, security officials grow fat as 100 Lagos-Badagry semi-highway illegal checkpoints yield billions.
Wow.
Anybody who is familiar with Lagos knows that that is the part of the Trans-West African Highway.
That's it.
Takes you from Lagos to Badagry to Seme, which is the border with Benin Republic, and then goes to Benin Republic and then to elsewhere. The major, of course, the road has been undergoing reconstruction for many years, and all these illegal checkpoints, those who are on that axis, they cry and complain every day. Why would you have 100 checkpoints? Even if there are 50 checkpoints, what are you doing?
What level of crime do they reduce, really?
What level of crime? And of course, what the report is suggesting is that it accentuates the level of extortion on that axis.
And, you know, with the number of checkpoints and how much is made from that particular road, we cannot take out the fact that those at the top are aware of what's going on. And I think that,
They may not be aware.
100 checkpoints. We're not talking about 10 or 15, 100. And then,
of the doubt. But when boots on the ground get too bold, somebody up there might not be too unaware of the evil happening on the ground. That's an assumption, though.
anyways, let's just hope that if they were unaware, now they know. And, you know, the right thing is done so that we can actually see a change. We hope to see another report, you know, like an update of what's actually going on that particular route, to see that, well, the checkpoints have reduced and, you know, people can actually move without having to pay so much to go through that route.
Yeah.
We hope so.
Thanks a lot.
If you say, one of the easiest ways, we're going to sign off now, we understand.
Okay.
Our director and producers are giving us signs. Look, ease of doing business. These are some of the issues that you and I, workaday persons, find irritating in the course of doing business.
Not just irritating, inhibiting.
That's right. Because in those days, if you were to drive from Lagos to Badagry, how long will it take you? Now, 100 checkpoints. If you are a commuter, of course, you pay for it because your driver, that's the motorist, will be extorted, and then he passes the cost on to you.
Exactly. Anyways, thank you so much, Chukwudi Okolegbaja, for joining us on Newspaper Review this morning. So we shall take a break now. When we come back, of course, we shall talk more on our topic of the day. It's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Stay with us.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and Special Tactical Squads, through digitalization of emergency contacts via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the top of a button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The Debt Management Office has been impacting infrastructure across Nigeria through the Sovereign Sukuk. Sections of 71 roads and 4 bridges covering a total of 2,820.06 kilometers across Nigeria have been constructed or rehabilitated using proceeds from previous Sukuk offerings of 2017, 2018, 2020, and 2021. Here is another opportunity to invest in your country as the federal government, through the Debt Management Office, offers for subscriptions of 100 billion naira 10-year Ijara Sukuk due December 2032 at the rate of 15.64% per annum. To be a part of this opportunity, check newspapers for details. Contact your bank or stockbroker or visit the DMO website at www.dmo.gov.ng to download and complete the application form. Your investment is a catalyst for growth and development.
The Digital Switchover project, which is commonly referred to as DSO, which entails television channels switching from analog to digital broadcasting, is one of the biggest projects embarked upon by this administration. Borrowed as free TV, offers its viewers about 60 digital channels, including sports, music, movies, and news. The federal government has licensed about 23 set-top box manufacturers. 7 of them have production, employing several thousands of people. We've made it now compulsory for all stations in Nigeria to only broadcast productions made in Nigeria for products which are produced in Nigeria.
What we face mostly now are flashes of cowardly attacks from the rump of groups that have been routed in one location or the other, moving to another to give the false impression that they are still strong. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate them altogether and restore total and lasting peace over every inch of the Nigerian soil. Sounding tall, we take it home. We are determined to ensure that every inch of the Nigerian soil is safe. That determination is there. The order has been given. But we shall continue to protect the lives and property of Nigerians and foreigners in our midst. We shall continue to work for the peace of the nation and deter elements that constitute threats to the people. We shall bear the full powers of the government to secure every inch of our land. We shall not rest until peace is fully restored to Nigeria.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
All right, welcome back. To begin our conversation on the revenue allocation review, let's take a background report put together by Garba Natahala.
Distribution of resources from government account is usually done using a sharing formula and proportional to revenues accrued from ministries, agencies, and departments over time. That explains why revenue allocation has become necessary to be revised from time to time by Revenue, Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission to reflect on the current situation in the country. As for Nigeria, resources retained, accrued in the Federation account generated by different government agencies at different locations are to ensure accountability in the equitable distribution of resources, which now remains a priority. However, the controversy in the proposed sharing formula has fallen short of expectations, seeing what the Mobilization Commission proposed: 45.1% for the federal government, 29.79% for state governments, and 21.04% for local governments. That has not augured well with the National Assembly. President Muhammadu Buhari also demanded for a proposed formula that will reflect the functions, roles, and responsibilities of different tiers of governments. The outcome of the constitutional review process is much anticipated under the prevailing formula. The federal government gets 52.68%. The 36 states share 26.72%, while 774 local government areas in the country share 20.60% every month. What is the recommendation that necessitates the need for a review? Are states and local governments generating enough revenue to cope with their needs in the country?
Our viewers on some of the other critical aspects of your constitutional mandate as a commission. First aspect is revenue mobilization. What does that entail?
Well, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity this morning. In the 1999 Constitution, as amended, our functions are listed clearly, which are number one, monitor the accruals to and disbursement of revenue from Federation account. The second function is from time to time review the revenue allocation formula, which we have just highlighted, and then advise the federal and state governments on fiscal efficiency and method which they could increase their revenues, and determine the remuneration of political office holders, governors, president, vice president, governors, legislators, and if you look at section 84 of the Constitution and 124, also judicial office holders, and then discharge any other function as are conferred on by the commission, by the National Assembly, so these are the items that are listed in the Constitution. Revenue mobilization is how do you harness all the income that is coming into the Federation for distribution to the three tiers of government: federal, states, and local government. Any agency that is a federation agency that makes their money and are supported by the federation should render account, and that account is to be shared among the three tiers of government. We have specifically agencies like the Internal Revenue Services, we have the Nigerian Customs Services, we have the defunct NNPC, of course, now NNPC Limited and NUPRIC, and we have also others that are not specifically mentioned in our act, like NIMASA, like NPA. So all those revenues, the Constitution says any receipt from anywhere shall go into the Federation account for sharing within the three tiers of government. So mobilization of revenue is to make sure that that revenue that is accrued from those sources are sent into Federation account, and monthly all the stakeholders are gathered and these monies are distributed appropriately based on the existing formula.
All right, many thanks, Mohammed Shehu, for that explanation. Your agency was actually established in 1989, and of course, the current revenue sharing formula was adopted in 1992. And since then, there has not been a review, except for the failed attempt in 1993. Agreed, yes, over 30 years, there's a need to review the revenue sharing formula. But do you really think that that is what we need at this time, looking at the present economic realities and where Nigeria is at the moment? Don't you think that, how the revenue is generated should be the main issue? And then the fact, like you mentioned, that some of these agencies that are supposed to actually generate revenue these days do not actually remit what they earn. They now spend what they earn and remit the surplus. So shouldn't that actually be the issue instead of a review at the moment?
Well, you cannot say because of one you cannot do the other. These are our functions. And like you rightly said, this thing had not been done in 30 years. What we operate now is Modification Act. it's an act that was just, at some point there was this idea that even under the 1999 constitution, under the military, FCT can be funded. But when the 1999 constitution came into operation, we found that based on the provisions of the constitutions, FCT cannot be funded. So that was why the special funds was created. Out of the 52.86% of the federal government, a certain percentage was set aside to address the issue of FCT, Ecological Fund, Natural Resources Development Fund, and the stabilization account. So because FCT was not considered a state, so that was set aside to be able to address that. And over the years, there had been agitations all across Nigeria, from states to local governments to some individuals that are very much interested in this, to say that there should be, some call it restructuring, some call it devolution of powers, some call it that more activities are taking place in states and local government. So why should the federal government be taking the biggest chunk of the pie? This thing should go down to the states. And there had been attempts by the commission over the years to make sure that these things are reviewed. And this review that we're talking about was actually done by the commission last year, not now. And the report was forwarded to Mr. President. So the two are totally different. As far as revenue mobilization is concerned, it's an ongoing exercise, and we are doing all that we can. Yes, there are agencies that find it very difficult, for whatever reason, to remit what they collected, to the federation account, simply because some of them are exploiting the loopholes in their acts that says you can spend X amount of money, 80% of what you received, and then you remit the rest. And there is also another dimension to it. Some of the agencies, they don't remit to the federation. They remit to consolidated revenue fund. I mean, that's the this thing for the federal government, which is wrong. Like NIMASA, like NTA and other things. So what should happen is the National Assembly should look into this. Look at the constitutional provision. The constitutional provision says every money should go into the federation account, but the acts of these agencies says they can do A, B, and C. So there has to be some form of reconciliation whereby these issues are addressed once and for all. And if that is done, I give you one example. I know an agency that I will not mention the name. The agency in 2021 made 49 billion from their operations as revenue. And they also spent 49 billion. They, just left a little bit to the federation, because they come up with all sort of ways by which whatever they make will just go to some individuals. They create this, okay, this one, there is a consultant here, there is a PPP, he takes 65%, the federal government takes 15%, social ministry takes certain percentage, and we take certain percentage. So these are some of the revenue leakages that we are talking. If an agency is mandated to deliver a service, that agency must deliver that service. It's not like some smart person will come up with a proposal and say, oh, we can do this and this. What happened to the people that are being paid salary in that agency for 30 years? They make it as a career. So every agency of government must try as much as possible to make sure that they deliver on their mandates without necessarily bringing in this distraction whereby monies that's supposed to go to the federation account is taken by some individuals. I mean, you do the research. I will provide you with some information so that you can check. I don't want to reveal the name of those agencies. And there was also another agency. After all the checks from various FIRS, Accountant General's Office, whatever, they said they have a clean bill of health. I think they paid like 50 million naira. But when we sent a consultant there, we established over 12 billion naira. The ought to have been remitted to the Federation account, and that money was never remitted. So we are engaging those people to make sure that that money did not go. If we did not look, that money will have been gone. And this is all across many different agencies. And I think the National Assembly is very much concerned about this. And we are also concerned about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman Shehu. We will still drill into issues around revenue mobilization, because part of the challenges that the recipients from the formula face has to do, part of the challenges has to do with the size or the quantum of the revenue that is mobilized. Honorable Alfred Egba, how well resourced is your commission to actually undertake the function of revenue mobilization, keeping an eye on the multiplicity of agencies that ought to generate revenue for the Federation?
Well, thank you very much. The chairman has dwelled much on that. I think that the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission is well prepared and is doing the job of monitoring and policing. But there are some things that are inhibiting the smooth operations of our mandate. Principal is the constitutional amendment. There are sections of the Constitution that we think that need amendment that will really make the operations of the Commission smoothly. If you look at the constitutions, there are first the exclusive legislative list, about 68 items in the Constitution, which we think that ought to be in the concurrent legislative list. And also, like aviation, NIMASA and NPA, these are institutions that ordinarily ought to be in the concurrent legislative list. So we need constitutional amendment for this to be in that list. And also funds that are supposed to come to the Federation account are going into the consolidated revenue account. Funds coming from NIMASA, coming from even NPA, and also aviation. So once there is a constitutional amendment, restructuring, as some may call it, I think that these funds will be remitted into the Federation account for the 3 tiers of government, to be shared.
Why, for instance, would you require aviation as an item on the legislative list to be on the concurrent schedule?
Well, you can see states right now are building their airports. States right now are buying aircraft. And so it won't be fair that after spending billions to build an airport, to buy aircraft, funds, the proceeds will be going into the consolidated revenue account. Even the employment of staff in that state is the Federal Ministry of Aviation that still undertake that. Salaries, taxes of these people also goes to the federal government. So I think that if it is in the concurrent legislative list, both the states and the federal government would share on the proceeds of this.
You're looking at it, you're looking at it from a strict revenue point of view. Some would say, for instance, aviation regulation. Aviation regulation, that's why you have the industry czar, which is the NCAA. NCAA is the Civil Aviation Authority, and that's, of course, is on the exclusive list. Each state cannot, therefore, be making its own pieces of legislation or regulations governing aviation. So I imagine, for instance, that aviation issues will go beyond the construction of airports as well as purchase of aircraft. If you purchase an aircraft, there has to be a central registry. There also has to be a central regulatory authority that governs the use of such aircraft. So, but as I said, we are looking at it strictly from a revenue point of view.
Perspective, yes.
All right, that's fine. We'll come back to that. I just want to come back to the chairman. Chairman, again, speaking on how well resourced your commission is, that's the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, in mobilizing revenue, keeping an eye on the several agencies of government, and considering also that these agencies of government are legal independent entities on the one hand, and then you have also other agencies of government, Ministry of Finance, for instance. You also have Accountant General's Office, Auditor General's Office, and so on and so forth. What is the interlinkage amongst these agencies as an aid to your function or as a hindrance to the performance of your function?
Well, you know, in the act of the commission, we can request for information from any agency of government. But specifically, our Federal Ministry of Finance, Central Bank of Nigeria, NNPC, DPR, Custom Services were mentioned. But that powers given to us did not limit us to only those agencies. It goes beyond that because it says any governmental agency. So we have some level of cooperation with some of them sometimes, and some other times it's a tug of war. There are informations that they don't want to release simply because we don't have the enforcement powers to either sanction them. You know, we can only write to them and demand. Sometimes they cooperate, some other times they don't cooperate. Financially speaking, if you're talking about the funding of the commission, it's not something that we are all proud of. And I think that from my engagement with stakeholders, this is something that everybody is looking at. We are trying to see how we can make the commission a truly independent commission. It's not a federal government commission because the source of funding of the commission comes from the federal government, this envelope system. We have a staff strength of about 823. We have our headquarters. We have 31 offices. We have 15 zonal offices. You know, sometimes we struggle even to pay the rent of those offices outside of the state. And our work is almost like 24 hours year in, year round. You know, for instance, recently we embarked on a mission to track down on what has been disbursed to states, you know, over the years to see whether what they have is in conformity with what we have. And we are finding some kind of thing. A report is going to be brought to the commission so that we can analyze it. And in the quest for mobilization of more revenue, we also do sometimes seminars and engagements with states to look at what they have comparative advantage if they want to establish an industry in maybe tomato industry or something like Jigawa or Kano or something like that. We look at it, we get the experts, we go and we give them information on how to access funds either from Federal Bank of Industries, or if it's Bank of Agriculture. You know, we interface with these institutions and collaborate to break it down to the state that you can go from point A to point B to point C and get what you need to do in an effort to get them to diversify their economy. Because let's face it, as it is now, the money that used to come from the NNPC will no longer be coming for a period of time. They say short term. Long term, this thing may go up. For now, where we are getting these resources is we're getting it from customs, we're getting it from NUPRIC, we're getting it from federal revenue. That's where the money that is being shared. So we do those things. We go to say, recently we went to Bauchi even before the inauguration of this Kalamani oil field, Bauchi and Gombe. The crude oil committee and the gas committee in the commission went and did a 2-day seminar, and the government of Bauchi State seems to be prepared because we gave them a long notice of about 6-7 months. This is what we intend to do. We are coming. They did their research and they have mapped out how they are going to go from point A to point B. We got some experts to really speak to them in an effort to have the subnationals not only to rely on the allocation that is coming from the federation, because ultimately down the line, the dream of the founding fathers of Nigeria is that every state should have some level of independence to be able to carry out its own activities, generate their own revenue, do a lot of things, and, make life better for the citizens of the country.
All right, thank you, Chairman Mohammed Shehu. I would still like to stay with the mobilization issue, because the truth is that if we do not mobilize this revenue, there'll be nothing to share. Yeah. So you mentioned that it's not the duty of your agency to enforce sanctions on agencies that, do what they want or try not to remit what they should remit. Whose duty is it to enforce sanctions on erring agencies? And then secondly, there are big companies running in this country, and of course the country should be able to get something from their being present in Nigeria and operating in Nigeria. Why do such companies not why don't we get to hear what it is that these companies are contributing? And then the fact that most times what we hear is they're getting waivers, running into billions of naira and all of that, and then it's like they're just operating free of charge in the country. So how do we now mop up revenue?
Thank you very much for this question. The enforcement powers that I was talking about was in case an agency did not comply, to go around the states in an attempt to amend the constitution, and we hope that will be something that all Nigerians will smile, because we hope that that is going to pass. This is what I mean. The big companies like the oil companies that you talked about, the waivers that some powerful individuals and companies get, I am personally opposed to it. And I think it has gone down, but it's still very high. If the nation expends like 5 billion or 6 billion in waivers year in, year out, that nation is bleeding, because after all, we know some of these big shots, they will request for waiver for something, but the reality on what they bring is another thing. Some of them even bring components and parts. They come and assemble. They will tell you they will come with industrial machineries and other things, but they end up in the containers like cars that are pieces together. So I will want the National Assembly and Mr. President to really look into this, so that that idea of giving waivers will be something that becomes a thing of the past, and as a commission, I think we are really going to do whatever we can to persuade the stakeholders that there should not be this level of waiver that is given, because the nation is bleeding. It's similar to the issue of subsidy of PMS and other products. That's, to me, is just something that is really not good for the system. What Nigeria needs is to mobilize whatever resources that they can get, that we can get, to rebuild the nation infrastructure-wise. We have not. Lagos-Ibadan took, 30-something years? Just a road between Lagos and Ibadan. It took Mr. President, this President, Muhammadu Buhari, to insist that that road should be constructed. The second Niger bridge, since after the Civil War, no bridge. Promises, promises, promises. So Nigeria needs every single naira that they can get to mobilize and put it in infrastructure development in the country. I know the subsidy issue is a political issue, but I think it can be done in such a way that it may not have a lot of negative impact on the society, because we really, as a nation, we cannot afford the subsidy regime, we cannot afford the waiver regime. Not this time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed Shehu. You gentlemen referenced the inconsistencies between provisions in the enabling statute in some government agencies and the provisions in the constitution relating, for instance, to the functions of your commission and payments into the federation account rather than the consolidated revenue fund of the federal government. What has been the attitude of the National Assembly to these inconsistencies? My question is going to you, Honorable Egba. Is the National Assembly aware of this? Has your commission made any attempt to prod them into the direction of having an omnibus piece of legislation that amends all the other acts and then directs them on what to do in line with the Constitution?
Well, thank you so much. Well, it is clear, constitutionally speaking, where there is a conflict between the Constitution and any act of Parliament, the Constitution prevails. And the National Assembly is aware of this. However, there is need for further amendment of the Constitution expressly to state the powers of each agency. There was a recent case between FRS and the Commission where the Finance Act was passed and signed by Mr. President. And we felt that it is infringing on our constitutional right. And we sought for interpretation. And the courts, ruled in our favor. We derive our powers from the Constitution, whereas the FRS Act was an act of Parliament, the National Assembly, the Finance Act. And so, once there is a conflict, it is clear where it will go, definitely to the agency that derives its powers from the Constitution. And the courts are also aware of that. That was why expressly the Federal High Court, in their wisdom, upheld our prayers. And it is clear. So there is no point. Every member of the National Assembly knows that once there is conflict, the Constitution prevails.
Well, it's an interesting issue that you have raised, but okay, let's condense it very quickly so that the chairman can also respond. The inconsistency that we're talking about is clearly stated in the Constitution, that the Constitution will prevail if that inconsistency arises from an act of Parliament versus the provision of the Constitution.
Right.
But we also know from Section 6 of the Constitution that the powers of interpretation are vested in the judiciary. So if you don't approach the judiciary, those inconsistencies will remain.
Yeah.
Just as you have said now, FRS versus your commission, that's to say Revenue Mobilization Commission, you went to court.
Yes.
And there was a court pronouncement. Yes. The court did not suo motu, that's on its own, just take on the matter. Or the court will derive its authority and powers from Section 6. Yes. Now, the question I'm asking is, the inhibition persists because the various acts establishing some of these agencies remain. And we are saying that, look, this is inconsistent with what the Constitution provides. Unless and until the National Assembly amends those provisions in the laws establishing those agencies, or you go to court, then it will remain. And then you will continue to bemoan the fact that they are not paying to the Federation account. What steps are you taking in this regard?
Well, we are doing consultation with all the stakeholders, particularly the National Assembly. I was with the Speaker of the House of Reps, the Chairman National Planning, the Senator, and I intend to see the Senate President so that I can draw their attention to this. My people are working with all these inconsistencies and trying to highlight them so that as stakeholders, as parliamentarians, they can look at holistically some of these things and see how they can bring it in line with the constitution. This is what we are doing. So we are doing that serious stakeholder engagement.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed Shehu. I think I'll remain with you because you're the chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. And, and my next question to you will be the proposed revenue allocation formula which you're putting forward. You want the federal government to have 50.65% as against 52.68%. The state government, I think you're proposing 25.62%, while local government will be increased to 23.73% as against what they used to get. Now, my question is on the fact that from this new formula, it looks like the local government is likely going to get more from what they used to get. The federal government will be reduced, state government will be a bit reduced, and all of that. With what is playing out at the moment, we know that there are very few local governments that operate on their own, that get this money and then use it for what it should be used for. The state governments are in charge. They determine what they give to the local government at the end of the day. So do you really think that this would improve, the situation in the country? Do you really think that this new formula is actually what we need, for development to trickle down to the common man right there in the rural area?
Well, I wouldn't want to confirm the figures that you read because that report was given to Mr. President and he has not yet forwarded it to the National Assembly. Maybe you have your anonymous source, so I won't tell you whether it's true what you quoted or not true. But in general, we did a fair job. We did a comprehensive review. We talked to whoever we need to talk to, from local government to states, to zonal hearings, to advocates, even to the federal government. We came up with what we feel, strongly believe is a fair and just formula based on our prevailing reality. Now, the issue you raised, local government, basically you're talking about local government autonomy. I am for local government autonomy. I know some governors are not for that. One governor told me when we were having a discussion, he said, you don't know what it is when they refuse to pay primary school teachers and the money was there but they use it for other things. And I say, Your Excellency, you can set up a mechanism whereby some of these people, if they violate whatever law, they can be punished. So there is that, tug of war between those who want local government autonomy and those who believe that the state government should have absolute control. And I am one of those who believe that local government should have their autonomy, because I'm a product of I was born in the 60s, post-independent, 70s primary school, late 70s secondary school, university in the 80s, and I have seen what local governments can do. That was even under military. They used to do even road constructions in a lot of places. They have like what they call yard superintendent in those days. They have a lot of workers. They do culverts. They do so many things. We want the return of that area because that's where the people live, the grassroots. So there is an attempt in the review of the Constitution by the National Assembly. This thing is going around. I know some states are agreeing with that proposed amendment to give that local government autonomy. And also thank Mr. President. When he came in, he's back and forth. He is for that proper autonomy of the local government. But of course with supervision. So we think that when this constitutional amendment is over, we will know how many states are in favor of that amendment and how many states are opposed to that amendment. It's just like the police state, but the state police. But we can only advise on this issue. This is beyond Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. It's the Parliament, it's the President, and it's the government, if the governors, but we can have our own advice. I am personally for autonomy of the local governments proper, because that's where the people live, that's the grassroots. And even all these insecurity issues that we have is better addressed at the local level, because sometimes they know who the criminals are. And when you have these things in places, you will have less people trooping into Abuja, trying to get something for themselves.
All right, just 2 days ago, one of the newspapers that we reviewed on Good Morning Nigeria reported that 16 state houses of assembly have passed the bill for local government autonomy as part of the efforts at the 5th alteration of the Constitution. So which means you have 8 more local governments to go. 8 more state houses of assembly to go. If they strike that threshold, then of course it means that the financial autonomy for local governments would have been achieved, and the issues that you have raised now will be allocation formula. I know that we had a conversation on Good Morning Nigeria sometime last year or sometime much earlier, when there was news about the activities of the commission and what you were doing with the revision of the revenue allocation formula. But walk our viewers through the processes and the procedures, because we did say that, look, this also has to be in tandem with the constitutional amendment, because if there are shifts, for instance, in the duties and responsibilities of the various tiers of government, many would argue that there should also be a corresponding allocation of such resources. Chair.
Yeah, what it is like, the commission operates similar to the National Assembly. We have representation what form the commission. Commissioners, federal commissioners like him, representing each of the states, plus FCT. And then there is a chairman and there is secretary, and we have about 13 or 14 departments. For instance, we have the crude oil department, we have the gas department, we have illegal revenue, we have remuneration and monetization department, we have revenue allocation formula, and etc. like that. We have investment. So that revenue allocation formula is headed by Mr. Amoji from Ekiti State, the commissioner representing Ekiti. And there are some former deputy governors as members of that. There are about 15 of them. So when we were going to do this last year, we got some intervention funds from the federal government, thanks to SGF, Minister of Finance, and of course, Mr. President. He approved for us some funds to go about this. So we brought this issue to the plenary. We do plenary once every month. All the issues that are outstanding or prevailing or existing then are discussed. And then we say, okay, we are embarking on that. And the chairman of that committee was put as the head. So they now gave us a modality on how this thing going to be. The first was the publicity, how to let every stakeholder in Nigeria know that this is going on so that they can make their own contribution. We had advertisements on newspapers, we had on televisions, we had on radio programs, and then segmented tours all across the 6 geopolitical zone. In other words, we had a visit to Lagos State, a zonal hearing. Almost all the states in that zone will assemble and present their views, as well as their local government chairmen and various other associations, civil society organizations. And then we moved to Owerri. And then from Owerri, we moved to Kogi, for North Central. Owerri, of course, is the southeast. And then we went to Port Harcourt for south. And then we moved to Kaduna for northwest. And then in the northeast, we went to Gombe. All governors sent their secretary to the governments. Some of the governors were present. The ministers of finance, commissioners of local government, civil society organization, Nigerian Labour Congress, everybody was involved. And of course, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, to give us all these facts. And we also had people that are well experienced in this area of revenue sharing around the world, and consultants, some few consultants were hired to look at what obtains in various developing countries as far as revenue sharing formula is concerned. That was not even limited to only developing countries. We even look at developed countries. And then a final retreat was organized in Kano. All the reports were harmonized, filtered out. Statisticians, mathematicians look at all the indices, various, what the states say they are doing, what the local government said they are doing versus what the federal government says. If you notice at the end of it, when we submitted the report to Mr. President in April, what he stated was that he commended us for a job well done. For the first time in many, many years, the federal government share has come down substantially. I won't confirm the figures that you get, but it has. And he said he was gracious enough to say thank you for a job well done. However, I'm waiting for the outcome of the constitutional amendment proposed by the parliament to see who is going to be responsible for what. That means the concurrent list and the exclusive legislative list. So once he is clear on that, we know that Mr. President is a man of his words, and Mr. President is a system person. Mr. President will submit whatever was given to him, even if he has some observations or something, he can revert back to us. But at the end of the day, I believe that we will have a new revenue allocation formula for the next administration.
All right, thank you.
The president will submit. Yeah. That's for the benefit of our viewers. Submit to whom?
To National Assembly. Yeah, to National Assembly. That's what the law says. Give it to president, look at it, forward it to the parliament to make it an act, and then when they do that, they bring it back to him, and then he will sign and accent, and it becomes law. Now, in the course of our hearing, some interesting discussion was coming up. Some people were saying that the constitution got it wrong. I say, how? They say, no, this thing should be from the commission to the parliament, and then when the parliament finish whatever they're going to do, they give it to Mr. President to either accent or reject. But I think that I would prefer the first one. Give it to Mr. President first, and then he looks at it and he takes it to
Of course, the president will seek the advice of the Federal Executive Council.
Absolutely, right. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you so much, Chairman. We shall take a break now. But of course, the figures I quoted, if they happen to be right at the end of the day, I'm sure I'm going to charge you something for that. All right, let's take a break. It's Good Morning, Nigeria. When we come back, this discussion will continue.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and special tactical squads. 2. Digitalization of emergency contacts via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the tap of a button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Everywhere you go, from banks to hospitals to public offices, mass transit stations, airports, and even telecommunication centers, senior citizens are treated as nuisances. They are not. They are senior members of our society, and they deserve the utmost respect. We shouldn't be having our aged fathers and mothers standing in long queues to withdraw their monies at banks. Our retired senior citizens shouldn't be caught standing in buses for lack of seats or chasing after one just to get to their destination. Senior citizens shouldn't have to sit long hours in hospital corridors with no geriatric specialist to attend to them. Our senior citizens deserve better treatment from all of us. They deserve to be listened to. They are deserving of seat reservations on public buses and priority attendance in public spaces. As young people, we are quick to say, no one owes you. This is not true. We owe the elderly members of our society a helping hand, our services, and respect. Age-friendly societies have more senior citizens enjoying good health, living safely, and engaging in meaningful community work than those who do not. Dignifying age-friendly services for senior citizens.
All right, welcome back. We're still with our guest right here in the studio, the chairman of the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Mohammed Bello Shehu, and we have the Federal Commissioner representing Bayelsa State in Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Honorable Alfred Egba. And of course, the topic remains review of revenue allocation formula. So I'm going to ask the next question, and Mr. Chairman, I'm going to stay with you on this one. We're trying to, or rather, you are trying to review the allocation formula. What about that of political office holders? I'm talking about salaries this time around. And, you know, not just political office holders, but civil servants. When last was the salaries of civil servants reviewed?
Yeah.
What's the plan? And then what are you trying to do about the fact that I'm a civil servant and another civil servant in another agency will probably earn more than I do? And even when maybe I work more or based on my schedule of, work, I have to work odd hours, public holidays and all of that, but the person earns more. All of these discrepancies as far as salaries are concerned, what are you doing about it?
Well, thank you very much for this sensitive question. Let's start with your salary. As a civil servant, is not within my mandate to address the issue of your salary. There is an agency called Salary and Wages Commission. I think those are the agency. That's the agency that is responsible for your own. But when was it reviewed last? I believe was 2014 or 15 from what I read in the newspapers, and I hope I'm right. I share your concern, and I sympathize with you. I am of the opinion that all public servants should be paid adequately so that they can be able to take care of themselves and their families and retire with a decent retirement package. I'm not one of those who subscribe to the idea of CBN gets this pay, NCC gets this pay, NIMASA gets this pay, MPA get this pay. You know, it really is not good for the system, and I will want a situation whereby all these salaries are harmonized, you know, so that everybody can get something. You live in Abuja here, the average worker in CBN gets lives also in Abuja. What he earns, an entry-level officer earns about 7 times what an entry-level person in the Ministry of Information earns. This is really an aberration. And I would want all Nigerian stakeholders to find a way to harmonize this for the betterment of the society. There is an interesting story. The other day I was saying, I say no public servant, whether it's NCC chairman or CBN governor or MD Nimasa, should earn a salary more than the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It shouldn't be. I can understand it, they have some peculiarities, some hazard allowance, some this and that. You can package all that, but basic salary, nobody should earn more than the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And contrary to the perception of the public and some people that politicians, president, governor, vice president earn a jumbo salary, it's not true. If I tell you, I gave a media outlet the other day the whole remuneration package of political office holders, and they published it. Maybe you saw it. If I tell you the salary of the president, you will laugh. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There was a newspaper that did a headline that political office holders are about to get jumbo severances and things like that. Mr. President, when he leaves office, he only gets 10.5 million naira for the service he rendered. 10.5 million. I know an agency, I won't mention, where somebody left. His severance was over 500 million naira. That's a public servant. So, Nigerians need to be educated, and I think you journalists need to really do a story on this. If you ask somebody who works in NCC what his salary is, he will not tell you. Not even a middle-level officer. Now, the review that we are embarking on is our constitutional mandate. We have not done it since 2008. The law says we look at the prevailing reality. From 2008 to now, a lot has changed. Now, we also have some issues that we need to address. I give you an example. When Mr. President appoints somebody as an ambassador to Chad or Benin or Niger or UK, so long as that person is not a career ambassador, his salary is that of a deputy director in the ministry. That's what it is. It's like an SA to the president, SA to the president. But he is supervising directors, you know. So we now look at this, we say, this must have been a mistake. Well, we wrote to Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we wrote to SGF. We are asking questions. I spoke to the DG and you know, nobody has an answer. Twice. Then they wrote to us how we didn't know how this thing came about and things like that. So we said, now, these are some of the things that we have to review. If you are a former chief of army staff, you are posted to some other place as an ambassador. Now you are receiving salary of a deputy director, but you are supervising director. How are you going to feel? So there are certain things that we need to do. NASENI, which is an agency that was just taken out of Federal Ministry of Science and Technology. The president is the chairman, but he has an executive vice chairman. But the people that executive vice chairman has to deal with are all in the same level. So we have to harmonize this. Salaries of judges. If you hire a judge today, and a judge that had been a sitting judge for 20 years, you that you are hired today and that judge that had been on that seat for 20 years will receive the same salary. And if you are given a house, government house, the law says 300% of your annual salary, you know, should be your housing allowance. That housing allowance will be taken and you continue to remain in that government house. So that means for the 30 years or whatever years that you're going to serve as a judge, you may not be able to build your own house. So we have to look at this. And then again, also Mr. President directed us recently, being a person of due process and law. Yeah, I'm sure you are aware there was a lawsuit. They sued the federal government, some organization, and said, went before a judge, and the judge ruled that a high court judge should be given salary of what, 10 million? Yeah, I think 10 million monthly. Some figure like that. So, but even before that, the EFCC chairman had a retreat with judges, and they complained to him. And he did a very brilliant recommendation to Mr. President that, look, these people must be taken care of, provide security, better salary for them, because you don't want them to be induced. You don't want somebody to come with bag of money and influence their decision. So you have to really take care of them. So that report, Mr. President forwarded it to Attorney General of the Federation, and some other groups came in. Then a committee was set up, and they look at this thing comprehensively. But the Attorney General spoke to me and said he's working on this, and I told him that, you don't have that powers to do that. He said he knows. He said ultimately at the end of it, this is going to come to your commission. So when it was given to Mr. President, he looked at it, he said he approved in principle, but it has to pass through the process. So just last week, the commission was directed by Mr. President to see how we can implement this. So in our review, what we embarked on, what we are likely going to have first is that of judicial office holders. That is going to come. We are going to separate it from that of certain political office holders. Yeah, and appointees. And look, Mr. President earns less than 1,200,000 a month as his salary. I'm telling you this.
It shouldn't be a secret.
Yes.
It shouldn't be a secret. Yes. But I'm just going to say this. So let's take this along. Two issues. Before the last review of salaries and allowances of certain political office holders and appointees, the President Olusegun Obasanjo administration was concerned, and I recall President Obasanjo saying this, that look, political office holders needed to be well remunerated so as to turn their attention away from temptation for corruption. Has that been realized since we had the salary increase or salary adjustment for certain political office holders in 2008? Along, of course, with allowances. The allowances will also include your per diem, will also include your extra code. That is one. Secondly, in considering this now, what attention will your commission be paying to the clamor for a reduction in the cost of governance, arising essentially from recurrent expenses such as salary allowances?
Absolutely for reduction of the cost of governance. Cost of governance means all the monies that are remitted to the federation accounts, some agencies are eating it up. That's number one culprit. I'm telling you, it's not the salary of the president or the salary of the speaker or the allowances. We have to revive that Orasanya report. Agencies that can perform a similar function, merge them together, because that will reduce substantially the running cost of governance. So as a commission, we are for that. Merge some of these agencies. You don't have to have, everybody has to have his independence, he has his budget, this one has their budget. That's where this thing comes, because I tell you, you know the story of JAM. For how many years? Not a dime is being remitted. Yes, when this my elder brother, Professor Oloyede, when he came in, because of his transparency, see what he is able to bring to the table. So I want agencies to be merged, similar agencies that perform similar functions to be merged, and amend the acts of some of these organizations in line with the constitution to prevent them from spending whatever they make. There is money out there. What is outstanding that is due to the federation estimate is over 7 trillion naira. Yes, it's over 7 trillion. You know, it's all over the place. You know, so it's a good thing we look into this, and review does not mean that we are going to increase it, we are going to decrease it, we are going to keep it same. We will look at it holistically, and it's not true that a senator or a member of House of Reps, the commission is giving them jumbo salary. No, the salary of Senate president is what? 700 and something. Basic salary that he gets. You know, the package when he is about to leave severance is not up to 7.5 million.
What about the allowances and all of that?
The allowances, everything. But in other countries, no senator or member of House of Reps get operating allowances for him being a senator. What I'm saying is, like in the United States, when you look at it, if you are elected a senator representing Southern District of New York, for instance, the salary of your constituency officer and all the staff, the computers, the office rent, their pension, will have nothing to do with you as an elected officer. There is already an existing structure. The system financed that. But what we did in Nigeria is we just package it and then give it to the legislator. That did not come from us, did not come from the commission. So it's now, I mean, Nigerians can really advise that why can't you make it package as a structure so that you win election, you lose election, that structure still remains and those people continue. The accusation is that some of them, they just take the money and put in their pocket, but may not necessarily be so. Okay. But that's the perception of the public.
All right. Thank you so much, Chairman. We're pressed for time. So on a final note, what do you seek to achieve with this proposed revenue allocation formula?
Well, we think that we want to make it better for everybody. In fairness, being a federation commission, one of the 14 constitutional commissions, we want to make it better. We want to make everybody feel a sense of belonging, and we hope that we can be able to...
Everybody excluding civil servants.
No, I've already told you about civil servants.
That's the business essentially. The salaries.
Salary and wages commission.
No, but he said everybody. I'm just trying to
say
I
understand. But that's what it's important what the chairman raised as a philosophical viewpoint. Namely, why should any public servant, that is to say those who serve in government-owned agencies, goals as they are called, earn more than the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Exactly.
And therefore, because what you earn, it will also have an impact as your basic on the allowances that you get, because your allowances are then computed as a percentage of your basic salary. Are we prepared to have this mind change? And therefore, to say, look, this has to change in our system. Very quickly, Honorable Egba, before we sign off.
Well, all this boils down to restructuring, constitutional amendment, and it goes as far as saying that the Salary and Wages Commission needs to look at all of this again, and it has to be on self-discipline.
It's self-discipline. There's a self-interest of each economic agent. I mean, if there's what you think is of benefit to you, you want to retain it. So that's your self-interest.
And orientation, we need to also change our orientation.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today. I want to thank the chairman, Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Mohammed Bello Shehu, for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the program. And of course, the Federal Commissioner representing Bayelsa State in Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Honorable Alfred Egba. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we shall now take a bit on foreign news.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed have discussed the urgent need to implement the ceasefire deal between his government's troops and Tigray forces in the north to secure lasting peace in northern Ethiopia. In a phone conversation between the two leaders, the U.S. Secretary of State stressed on disarmament of the Tigrayan forces. Also, the U.S. reiterated its continued support to the EU-led process, including its monitoring and verification mechanisms of the peace agreement. Brazil's Electoral Court has rejected a challenge against the presidential election result made by the far-right party of President Jair Bolsonaro. He nearly lost to the leftist former leader Luiz Lula da Silva, and his Liberal Party PL claimed without evidence that voting mechanisms were compromised. The court said the complaint was made in bad faith and fined the party €3.5 million. Earlier, Bolsonaro has claimed that Brazil's electronic voting system is not fraud-proof. Meanwhile, Lula is expected to assume office on 1st January.
All right, that's Good Morning Nigeria today. Many thanks for joining us on this very interesting edition of the program. Of course, we'll do this again tomorrow, bright and early. I am Ian Ray John.
I'm Kingsley Osagolo, also thanking you for being with us. Look after yourselves. Tomorrow is another day.
Yeah.
Latest entrant, latest technology. Welcome to Intel 4G LTE Advanced and experience super fast internet access today. Visit intel.com.ng or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Intel. Live more.
Diary Media, in association with Cabal Entertainment, presents The Candidate, a presidential town hall meeting series where the presidential candidates of the 6 leading political parties tell us about their plans for the country. Join Adaria Ahmed as she leads us into the world of these candidates from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2022. This very important program will be streamed on FRCN, Radio Now, DSTV, NTA, Facebook, YouTube, and more. This is a town hall meeting you shouldn't miss. Tune in. Let's hear from the candidates.
This is the moment we've been waiting. It's time to rise up, do it again. Africa, do your dance now. God, do your winning dance now. So we never lose it again.